What if the most important duel in Star Wars history had ended differently? In Revenge of the Sith, Yoda battles Darth Sidious in the Senate chamber, a clash of pure light and pure darkness. In canon, Yoda fails, realising he cannot defeat the newly crowned Emperor, and chooses exile. But what if Yoda hadn't retreated? What if he fought Palpatine to the death, and lost? This single change would send shockwaves across the galaxy, altering Obi-Wan's role, Luke's path, and even how the rebellion formed. Today, let's explore this alternate timeline, where Yoda's sacrifice changes everything. Let's start with the immediate consequences. Palpatine winning against Yoda would give him an even greater sense of invincibility. He's already declared himself Emperor, but defeating the greatest Jedi alive, the Grand Master, would cement his rule with zero doubt. For the Jedi, this is catastrophic. In canon, there's at least a sense that Yoda and Obi-Wan are alive, waiting for the right moment. But without Yoda, Obi-Wan becomes the last true Jedi Master left in hiding. Leia still goes to Alderaan, Luke is still taken to Tatooine, but the stakes of protecting them rise drastically. Without Yoda, Obi-Wan's mission changes completely. In canon, he accepts his death at Vader's hands on the Death Star, knowing Luke still has Yoda to train him. But here, he can't take that risk. If Obi-Wan falls, Luke has no one. That means Obi-Wan would avoid direct confrontation with Vader for as long as possible. He wouldn't allow himself to be cornered on the Death Star in Episode 4. Instead, he'd stay in the shadows, always guiding Luke from a distance, and keeping him far away from Vader until the time was right. Obi-Wan would have to survive, not just until Luke meets him, but all the way until Luke is fully trained, likely into Return of the Jedi. His survival becomes essential to the galaxy. Now this is where things get interesting. Yoda's death would push the Force Ghost concept to the front much earlier. Qui-Gon, who had already reached out to Yoda by the end of Episode 3, would now guide both Yoda and Obi-Wan in spirit. Imagine Luke's journey, not just trained by Obi-Wan in person, but also influenced by visions of Yoda and Qui-Gon through the Force. This changes Luke's growth. Instead of splitting his training between Obi-Wan and Yoda, he's raised with Obi-Wan physically by his side, but is spiritually mentored by two of the greatest Jedi Masters. With Yoda gone, Palpatine may feel more of a requirement to send Vader and his Inquisitors more aggressively after Obi-Wan. The purge of the remaining Jedi would be even harsher, because there's no chance of Yoda rallying survivors. Obi-Wan's exile becomes much more dangerous. Every moment, every action risks detection, and unlike canon, where Vader assumes Obi-Wan is hiding, here, he may actively hunt him for years. This could make Obi-Wan more of a strategist than ever, carefully plotting when Luke learns the truth, ensuring they're always one step ahead of Vader's pursuit. Now, let's talk about Luke. With Obi-Wan alive longer, Luke's training would start earlier, and be much more thorough. Instead of a crash course with Yoda on Dagobah, Luke could spend years under Obi-Wan's watchful eye, becoming far more disciplined by the time he faces Vader. The emotional stakes shift too. Luke doesn't just feel the weight of being the galaxy's last hope, he is the last hope. There is no Yoda waiting in the wings. The responsibility falls entirely on his shoulders, and Obi-Wan knows it too. By Return of the Jedi, Luke would be far more prepared, and possibly even more powerful, having had consistent training rather than fragmented lessons. The iconic confrontation between Luke and Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back never happens. Luke wouldn't run off, half-trained to Cloud City, because Obi-Wan would still be guiding him in person. Han and Leia might never be captured. Vader's "I am your father" reveal might even play out differently, perhaps delayed, or handled in another climatic duel much later. This drastically reshapes the middle of the trilogy. The emotional turning points change, but the end goal remains: Luke confronting Vader and Palpatine. So what about Return of the Jedi? If Obi-Wan survives to this point, he and Luke likely take on the Emperor together. Imagine a rematch, Obi-Wan facing Sidious decades after Yoda's fall, this time with Luke at his side. Would the two of them succeed? Possibly. By this point, Vader may still turn against the Emperor, but Obi-Wan's presence changes that final duel. Perhaps instead of Vader saving Luke, it's Luke saving both Obi-Wan and the Rebellion in one act of defiance. In the end, Yoda's sacrifice changes Star Wars at its core. The original trilogy becomes less about the baton passing from Obi-Wan to Yoda, and more about Obi-Wan's long struggle to protect Luke until the very end. Yoda, even in death, would still influence Luke through the Force, but the galaxy would never again see the wisdom of the little green Jedi Master in person. It makes Luke's victory in Return of the Jedi even more powerful, because he isn't just avenging his father or saving his friends, he's fulfilling a destiny that Yoda could never complete. So what do you think? If Yoda had fought Palpatine to the death and lost, would Obi-Wan have been able to hold on long enough for Luke to save the galaxy? Or would the Emperor's power have eventually crushed them all? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, then check out our recent video, and hit subscribe so you never miss another Star Wars discussion.